I believe in the power of learning, and so does Smart Deal Academy. This incredible nonprofit serving the greater Charlotte area is changing lives through personalized tutoring, homeschool teaching, and enrichment classes for students of all ages. From pre-K phonics to private music and Spanish lessons, Smart Deal creates a safe, joyful space where kids grow in confidence and curiosity. This work only happens because of generous donations from those who believe every student deserves a chance to thrive. Every dollar fuels one-on-one support, creative programming, and the kind of encouragement that sticks with a child for life. Be a part of that impact by visiting smartdeal.com and make a tax-deductible donation today. Let's build a brighter future together.
Make your day richer than it was before. Got some good times knocking upon your front door.
Matt, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And thanks for writing this book. I mean, you really put it all out there.
I did. I really went for it.
What sparked that need to say I'm gonna lay it all out there for people to read?
It was not the original intention. It really began. I was taking this memoir writing course when I was living in Manhattan in my early 30s, doing some essay writing and waxing philosophical about stuff I had been through, and I realized there was this story, and the original story was centered around the banjo and this one woman who was my girlfriend for a bit in my 20s, and I fell in love with her, and I wrote a whole album of music about her. And then it through my editor, Wendy, who really coached me on writing at the time, it became a full-length book little by little, and she gave me the courage to kind of write about the parts that you're mentioning, putting it all out there. It was not the original intention. So that stuff, the stuff that is, interesting for readers to read. Some have already said it's a little cringe, which I kind of think is funny. It really blossomed into this full-length memoir about my life and stuff that happened in it. And it ended up becoming an homage to Philip Roth, who is, for those of you that are listening and don't know anything about the book, the whole book is, the conceit of the book is I'm basically having an imagined conversation with Philip Roth from beyond the grave. He's my favorite writer. Very bawdy, irreverent, provocative, mid-20th century Jewish white male writer, and I really felt like he was like this great uncle I'd never met. And speaking to the fake Philip Roth in the book allowed me to it gave me the courage to kind of tell my story even more, because of a lot of his stories that he writes are so ridiculous, and I identify with so much of it. So that allowed me to really come into my own as the writer of this book. Yeah.
Who would you say that the book is for? Like, who should be reading the book? I
really think that it's probably for anybody my age, plus or minus 10 years. So from your 30s until your 60s, I think that people will really identify with what I went through in my 20s, which was, in the Mid-Aughts in Manhattan. So anybody who kind of has an interesting relationship with their family and their friends and might struggle with faith a little bit, whether it's, whatever faith community you come from, whether you're a musician, if you're in recovery. I'm in recovery 11 years. A lot of my book is about making a lot of bad decisions when I drank. It's not the central piece of the thesis of what I was writing, but it's really in there. So a lot of stuff about I hate to use the word struggle, because it's not like I struggle on a grand scale beyond like the white collar male in Manhattan, right? But for lack of a better way of putting it, like anybody who's really struggled in the day to day and has failed and has had to deal with failure and try to make some sense of what the meaning of their life is and the purpose, I think you'll really identify with how I go at it, especially with my humor. I think that, yeah. So.
Yes, also important that there's humor in it, that there's a lot of a very heavy, honest, real talk in the book, but there's also humor in the book too, for people that might be like, okay, too heavy, too dark. Like you definitely have levity in there. Was there a part of the book that was the more difficult than others to write about, to revisit, or at the same token, like, was there something that writing about it was super helpful for
It's a really great question. Let me start with the easy stuff. The easiest stuff was writing about my parents, because my father, who I love very much growing up, would say the most ridiculous things, right? So using my dad as this artifice of comic relief, I wrote all of those scenes laughing out loud and being like, did he really say these things? And my brothers reading the book, they were like I remember him saying that too. So I really am not making it up. It's kind of like sometimes it's funny when you write a memoir. It's not like you have your whole life written down in some journal,
you?
right?
Yeah.
A lot of you go inside and try to recreate things in your head, and so it's funny when somebody says back to you, "Yes, that's how I remember it." Also, right?
Hmm.
So,
Well, and
so
even like when you're in the same house as someone, like their version of an event is going to be completely different than your version of an event because it's from their eyes. So
yeah,
yeah,
right, yeah.
even yeah.
So that was the easy stuff. I want to say the middle grade difficulty was writing some of the romantic scenes, the love scenes, the sex scenes, for lack of a better way of putting it, which I also did not want to write. To be honest with you, in the beginning, I really didn't want to write them because I didn't want to come off as trying to write erotica or porn, right?
Hmm.
But my editor really gave me the courage, and she was like, "It's not going to be those things if you write from a place of authenticity, and you're just trying to show what you went through, and the reader will identify with you." So she gave me a couple of readers, a couple of writers to read, not readers, a couple of writers to look at, and I really found a way to write that stuff that I thought was really true to what happened and like the life that I live. Look, that's part of life. Everybody has this aspect of their life that I recognize they don't write about it, right? But I got pushed to write it. I feel like I wrote one scene that I thought was really funny, and I was hooked. I'm like, I can keep doing this. It's not bad, right? It's not like there's nothing wrong with it. Like I'm just writing something that's a little bit, I don't know, funny, so to speak. As you can see, I'm kind of dancing around using vocabulary for talking about the bedroom. Um, and my editor said to me, Matt, I'll never forget this. I was sitting on my couch in Manhattan. I just want to see you get laid. Write the scene. And that's what I did. And then,
There you go.
from there, I was really able to kind of work that part of the book. So that was actually the middle difficulty stuff. The most difficult stuff was writing about how I really messed up a couple of relationships and really writing those scenes where everything fell apart. That was kind of
Mhm.
strangely embarrassing and painful to write, even though I'm like by myself and writing it and having to relive it, knowing what I had done and the damage I had created. Damage is I don't know if I created damage, but we'll call it chaos,
Yeah.
right? We'll call it that.
Yeah.
That was hard. And a lot of it involves, drinking. Drinking wasn't all of it, but drinking definitely pushed it into another category of chaos in my life. And so writing about the drinking and the bad decisions together. Also early on in the writing process, I was actually I was newly sober when I started writing the book, not even a year. And when you're in, so I'm in AA, like a classic AA guy. And in AA they tell you the first year of your life, like, don't change too much. If you're in a relationship, don't leave it. If you got a job, don't leave the job. If you're in a really great job, don't look for another job, right? I was really excited to write about this part of my life because I really doing everything when you're newly sober is miraculous. So like literally like sitting with a cup of coffee in the morning and reading and not being hungover,
Hmm.
I felt like this new man, right? My editor was really direct with me. She was like, "Don't make this memoir about recovery. That's not what this is about. The drinking and the bad decisions can be part of the story, but don't make it like the central, thing." So the process of writing those scenes and talking about the drinking and the decision making, that was really painful for me, to be honest with you. But I'm happy I've preserved it because you know what, when I go over it and I talk about it, like right now, it just reminds me. I'm not going to talk about a scene because I'm not going to give away the book. I hope you'll read it if your interest is piqued by listening to this episode. But it reminds me of the life I used to live before I got sober.
Mhm.
That's important as an alcoholic. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Was there? I'm always curious when someone writes a book about the titles, the way they name titles. Are there any other titles besides "What Would Philip Roth Do" in the running, or how did you settle on that one?
Oh, so it's such a great question. So, for those of you that don't, obviously nobody knows me. Uh,
They
the
do
book,
now.
the book is all. The book is also. It's not just about what I just said, the drinking and the bad decisions. It's also about my love of bluegrass music and becoming a bluegrass banjo player in my 20s and finding bluegrass music and moving to New York um, so it was, and I'm also Jewish, and I'm a Jewish educator my whole career, and I worked in synagogues in Manhattan, and Jewish music comes into focus with my identity as a banjo player. So the original title of the book was Banjo,
Mm.
like over a decade
Uh-huh.
ago, right?
Uh-huh.
And you also mentioned Philip Roth. So the original conceit of the book, like, was that I was having this imagined conversation not with Philip Roth, but with Garrison Keillor, who, if you're listening, if you know who he is, he had this really amazing variety show, musical variety show with
Mm-hmm.
poetry reading and storytelling and amazing bands on NPR on I guess it was on Saturday nights for 25 years on it was called A Prairie Home Companion. And I even saw him a couple of times in New York when he would come through to do the show in Midtown. And then he unfortunately had a. So anyway, I really thought he was like the personality I was going to be telling this story to, because I always loved his humor. It was kind of dry and Midwestern. I thought it was really funny and quirky. And he unfortunately had a Me Too scandal in
Oh, I didn't know that.
2016 or 17, and he maybe it was a little bit later. I don't remember, but he was off the air, right? So I'd written this whole book talking to him, and I felt really bad about it because I just didn't feel comfortable publishing a book speaking to him anymore. And by that point, Philip Roth had died. And there was an authorized biography that was published about him in 2022. And by that point, I was, with my now wife, and she was like, Philip Roth's your favorite writer. Why don't you rewrite the book talking to him? And I'm pretty sure she even came up with I want to credit her with the title. She said, you should call it What Would Philip Roth Do? And it obviously dovetails with another phrase, but I think it really speaks to the conceit of the book really well, because it's kind of like, if you've ever read any early Philip Roth from the 70s, the ridiculous situations that his protagonists get in, I really identify with a lot of those scenarios. That, like, that was my life in New York as a man in my 20s and 30s. So that's how coming full circle, that's where that came from. Yeah. So sorry to cut you off. From banjo to What Would Philip Roth Do?
That's the title of your next book.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. Yeah.
What do you love most about your life right now?
What I love most about my life. You're putting me on the spot. I mean, I'm supposed to say my wife, right? Because I love her so much, which I do. But I gotta be honest with you. I like hanging out with my dog. I just like taking my dog for a walk. I live in downtown Cincinnati, so we live right on the Ohio River. I love getting home from work and just walking the dog on the river with the bridge. There's a couple of bridges, and I love walking my dog at sunset. It's like my favorite thing to do when the day is over, to be honest.
That's fun.
Sometimes my head isn't clear, but on those moments where it is clear, and I'm just like throwing the ball with him on the grass, and I'm really a refugee from New York. I lived in New York 17 years, and I really feel like I was chased out of that city. I'm sorry if you're a New Yorker. I really don't miss New York at all. Even though most of my adult life took place there, until I moved there at 25 and I left at 41. I didn't. What's that? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I spent 30 years in Wisconsin, and I tell all the time on the show, I hate going back. It's cold there.
I feel it's cold. I'm sure it is. I really feel like I have more time for things in life that I didn't have in New York, and I really appreciate that. And my dog, top of that list.
And your wife, of course.
And my wife, right next door. It's funny. She just got back from a trip to New York, and I feel like she came in the door and walked right past me to the dog. Yeah.
That happened. Well, you saw my dog come in here, so
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
she's also ready to go outside. What's the best way that people can connect with you out there in the world?
My Instagram, it's really simple. Is at Matthew Check, one word. All my stuff is there. All my stuff is on my website, matthewcheckmusic.com. I am a career musician with lots of albums, so it's all on Spotify and Apple and Amazon and Pandora. And even though I'm promoting my book right now, if you like really good classic Americana country rock stuff, that's my style. So all my stuff is on my website. You can buy my book on my website. You can listen to my music on my website, Matthew Check Music.
Yes, and an amazing musician. So please come back and talk about your music because I think it's worth an entire interview about that.
I'd love to. Yeah. That'd be amazing.
All right, good. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.